Yes, I made it, but barely. So I will call to order the Tuesday, August 12th, 2025 meeting of the Single Exit Multiplex Housing Ad Hoc Tag Meeting. Dustin, if you can take a roll call.
All righty, I'll take my time so you can catch your breath. Roger Herringo.
I am here.
Thank you. Dan Young.
Here.
John Hall. Not seen in the room today. Joe Mayo. Also not seen in the room today. Andy Lorenz.
I'm present, sir.
Thank you. David Kinley. Not seen in the room. Jeremy Moore.
I am here.
Thank you. Jonathan Goldsmith. Not seen in the room. Robert Baglio. Not seen in the room. Michael Wright.
I'm here.
Thank you. Jesse Bank. Not seen in the room. Shweta Sinha. Not seen in the room. Mike Messer.
Present.
Thank you. David Lynham. Not seen online. Dave Kokop.
Present.
Thank you. Rich Geiske. Not seen in here. Spencer Gardner.
I'm here.
Thank you. Derek Weigel. Not seen in the room. Richard Williams.
I'm here.
Thank you. John Sue.
Here.
Thank you. And with that, we have a quorum today.
All right. Is there anybody from the public that would like to be recognized? And I'm not seeing any.
No hands today.
Okay. All right, so I would just, as a welcome, I want to remind everybody, we'll go through the agenda that we are focusing the work today on the single exit proposal, as was discussed last time, which means in 2 weeks on, I think it's the 26th, we will be focusing our efforts on the multiplex housing. And Dan, are you going to be at the meeting on the 16th or the 26th? Because I am going to be absent.
Yes, I think I am. Either 26th?
Yeah, 2 weeks from today.
Yeah, I will be. What time are we having that meeting?
1 to 4.
Yep, I will be there.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that bit of business taken care of, if we can review and approve the agenda, if I could have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Folks, just so we can have a clear record, I saw Dave was the second, but when we're making motions, could we get names with those just so we can take notes? Nice.
John, see you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right. Is there any discussion about the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, agenda is approved, so we will get into the single exit work. Item 3, a reminder, I think these are all posted, but there is a spreadsheet that we have that is a list of topics for discussion. I want to remind, we started through that at our last meeting, and we have, correct me here, Dustin, the ones the comments on the right that are yellow are ones that we wanted to push off and have further discussion on, right?
Yes, and they should also have some correlating highlights in the Word document that we'll be sharing here as well.
Okay.
And yeah, so everything in yellow, we're kind of marking for further discussion down the road.
Okay. My hope is, plan is to continue today to go through the items line by line and hopefully the same thing. If there is consensus amongst all of us that what is in the proposal that we have, which is also posted, the baseline single exit baseline document, if the information is that, if there's a general consensus that that is correct, we will say yes, as you can see on whatever that line is.
All right, I moved it. Okay.
You can see yes on the, what is it, high rise prohibition, right? We all agreed that it can't be considered a high rise, and there was
Yes.
consensus on that. So our plan will be going through item by item, having a discussion about them. If there's consensus, we will indicate as such, and then at the end, once we get all the way through, we will have one motion to approve those items that don't need further discussion. And then we will go back through and start having further discussion, and I'm going to assume that we would end up eventually voting on each of those items that have, need further discussion that there was not necessarily consensus on. So that's our path forward. I did not see Ardell on. She was the person
She's
that
on.
was.
I'm on.
Oh, great. Because Ardell knows a whole lot more of the details than I do. Ardell, would you like to continue on?
Sure.
Sounds good.
Dustin, do you want to share your copy or do you want me to share?
Yeah, I'll share my copy. That way, any edits, we won't have to worry about sending them back and forth. There we goes that, and there's our copy. Let me not size it like that, but get it sized so that we can see both of these screens appropriately. All right, and if any point anybody wants me to zoom into anything in particular, just let me know, and I'm happy to separate this stuff out. And so it looks like we left off yesterday, or not yesterday, last meeting on the sprinkler requirements line, which is Q101.1, number 7.
Yeah. So in this, wait, number 7, yep. For this, the building shall be equipped with an automatic sprinkler system in accordance with section 903311. That's a full 13 system. And depending on the story height and the building height, that could be more than what the model code requirement would be. And so if you look at the scoping, I believe it's of a 13R. I'm going to defer to my fire colleagues here, but I believe that's 60 feet and 4 stories. Do I have that right? Hold on. I don't have my code open. I'm trying to open it now.
I'm going to offer, if anybody feel free to jump in. I'll formalize the questions and answer if we have people start talking over each other, but
The 4 stories is correct. I don't remember the footage off the top of my head.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so this, again, this proposal in the table, it takes you to 3 stories for a single exit. And this is going up to 6 stories. But the sprinkler provisions for a 13R would be permitted for some of these single exit buildings. So certainly at 4 stories. So the question is, do you ask for full 13 for all single exit buildings using this appendix? And that was the recommendation of WABO, was to go ahead and use the full 13. And that's also what's in the Seattle code. It's the enhancement over model code.
So Ardell, for somebody that doesn't necessarily know even as much as you, the 13 is more robust than the 13R and probably costs more.
Hold on. It has a different coverage and
Okay.
different goals for the system. And maybe Mike or Dave, I don't know if you want to speak to the differences between a 13R and a full 13. Sorry to call on you.
Yeah, the 13R system is designed for the maximum of 4 sprinkler heads operating. And it does not include attic sprinkler protection and small bathrooms and small closets. Where the 13, because we're a taller structure, 13R was tested and is approved up to and including 4 stories. Once we go above that, there is a little bit more concern about potential fire risk and distances away from where the fire service would be. So the 13 system kicks in, which does provide the attic protection if there is an attic. There may not be an attic on the building depending on how it's designed. And all the rooms would have to be provided with fire sprinklers, and it does go to a little higher density, not necessarily in the residences themselves, but in any corridors or hallways or anything like that. And with the buildings we're looking at here, I don't think it's going to be a significant difference between 13R and 13 because we're doing just a single stair. We're not going to have large common areas or anything like that. So I don't think that this is going to be a significant difference between the two, but I'm open to comment.
Hey, Dave.
John? Go ahead.
Real quick on that too, when you're going through, one of the cool things about 13 is they allow non-metallic pipe. So you can use your CPVCs now, not just your Schedule 10 and Schedule 40. So that's been a significant reduction in cost on the 13 systems for light hazard.
Okay.
Mike answered my question.
Okay. Ken?
So yeah, you brought something up, Mike. So when we use this is Ken Brulette, City of Seattle, but when we use this section in the code, we don't remove the requirements for standpipe because the standpipe provisions are still in 905. If this is an appendix, nothing's mentioned here about referring back to 905. So is the goal of not requiring standpipes when they're required in 905?
So my assumption would be the standpipe would still be required because you have occupied floor over 30 feet or greater than 3 stories. So again, my assumption, the standpipe for the up to 6 stories would be required. And that should already be base code.
Yeah, I'm just didn't know if in the general section where it says in addition to the means of egress requirements of chapter 10, should we not be also putting in there in addition to the standpipe requirements and 905, something to that effect?
Good point. On the language side, I'll defer back to Ardell. She was really good on keeping our last group on track with writing in anything above and beyond base code.
Go ahead, John, if you're or
Yeah, I mean, just to address that question, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of things in the code that still would apply. I don't think we need to point back to that one specifically.
okay. From a code language perspective.
Right.
Okay. Spencer, do you have a comment on that or something different?
Something different. So if there's more discussion, I can wait.
My question that I'll throw out there, and I don't have an opinion about this, but would it make sense to allow 13R for 4 stories, but if you go 5 or 6, you have to go to 13? Or is it the consensus of this group that you would need to do just because we are getting rid of, we only have 1 exit rather than 2, that going to 13 makes more sense? A question.
Well,
John,
the code
go
is
ahead.
pretty specific, is if the building itself goes to 4 stories, it's gonna be 13R. If it exceeds 4 stories, then the building has to be 13R for the standard.
Yeah, my suggestion, Dave, would have been if you build a 4-story, you can use 13R. If you build a 6-story, you have to use 13 the whole way.
Can
And I
I-
don't know. Go ahead.
I'll let Ardell address that.
Yeah. So and I'll kick it back to you, John and Spencer, in just a moment. So there's the decision point here is about the 4-story building A 4-story single exit building is currently not permitted in the code. This code change proposal will allow 4, 5, and 6. 5 and 6 do not change. Those remain a full 13 system. The decision point here is, do you want a full 13 system for a 4-story single exit building? When you get a full 13 system, it's an enhancement over the 13R that is currently required in the code. It gets you something back in exchange for the single exit. You'll get sprinkler coverage in areas such as the attics, closets. I think Dave mentioned something about quarters. I don't. And then there's a potential shift in cost there for the 4-story building, but as discussed in the WABO proposal or discussion, it was worth getting the enhancement for the 4-story building. 2 other options we discussed were just allowing the base code. So 4 stories gets a 13R. It does get that savings in cost. A third option was to get a full 13R, but with an enhancement. So asking, I think we prohibited an attic, and that was, I think, of all of these options, as discussed in the WABO discussions, we landed on a full 13 because while there is some additional cost, you're getting savings in not having the other stair. And so that was it's just part of the package, part of the trade-off is getting full coverage in attics and closets and a full 13. So those are some of the benefits, and yes, cost is the potential impact to the 4-story building.
Mike,
Cool, thank you. So kind of piggybacking on Ardell, the biggest thing with the 13 versus 13R is double the density. When we look at our sprinkler water flow, it actually goes down to the density of the sprinkler head and what it covers. When you look at your 13R systems, they're very similar to the 13D that we use in 1 and 2 family, where their density of discharge is 0.05. When we move into the 13 system as a light hazard system, it's 0.1, so you do get double the water. Where that affects is that in the 13D arena, our 1 and 2 family, it's truly a life safety system. Keep the fire down so occupants can egress. When we get into our 13 systems, because of the increased density, there's more of a chance of the fire actually being extinguished versus kept in a lower phase. So that was one of the reasons why at least our work group did recommend the 13 over the 13R for these occupancies.
okay. And Ardell, can you clarify if somebody were to build a single exit 3-story is already permitted, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Well, again, I'm not pushing for the 4-story differentiation. I just wanted to ask the question. I would support the 13R for the whole thing. Spencer, you have a question related to this particular item?
Well, yeah, I think you kind of asked my main question, so it's helpful to get that clarification. Ultimately, we're talking about what to do with 4 stories because 5 and 6, if I'm understanding correctly, would already be subject to a full 13 system.
That's correct.
And what I'm hearing is that one of the differences between a 13R system and a full 13 is essentially a difference between protecting life and then protecting property. A full 13 system is more likely to protect property. So I guess to me, that's kind of the key consideration there is what's the risk profile? I know we've had lots of conversations around and around about that. That's all. Thanks.
Right. So I'm going to ask, is there a consensus to basically Ardell, so the 903.3.1.1 is a 13 system. Is that correct?
Yep.
So is there a consensus that item number 7 on the right is preferred by most of the group? I guess if there are people that are opposed or thinks we should consider it more, let us know. Spencer.
I guess I'd like to know if we were to give the 13R option to a 4-story, I'm trying to understand how that would be written. So section 903.311.
You just strike it.
You would strike that?
Yeah, because it
Okay.
would just, the building would still get the sprinkler requirements out of the base section of chapter 9. And it wouldn't have this additional line of item 7.
I guess I'll just register my support for that option, given the potential cost implications. And I
Sure.
think our mandate from the legislature is to try to make these as feasible as possible. So that's all.
Okay. I guess I'm not sure if we have, well, Dustin, let's go ahead and put that in yellow on the right. I don't want to, if there's somebody that, this is the first time really getting into the discussion, so let's put that under another item that we need to confirm. I think there was general consensus, but certainly that cost, and I was kind of in the same place as Spencer, but then I think the added water flow, because you are, when you start talking about risk, certainly there is a risk of only having one stair rather than two, so the higher water flow made a lot of sense to me, but.
And Dustin, to correct your notes, a
Mhm.
13R is permitted for 4 stories and 60 feet.
Okay.
Thanks.
Pressed buttons I didn't mean to press and it messed me up. So 1 second here. So is the question not then what are we doing on the 4-story, just whether or not
That is the question, but to be clear, the 13R is permitted at 4 stories. And the question is, do you want an enhancement on the 4-story building?
And going back to the other box there, it's actually 5 stories, 5+ stories that require the 13. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Fire alarm requirements, and I am, by the way, on my screen, I have pulled up the information that we got from the fire folks that worked kind of putting their suggestions together, and so far we haven't come across that.
So that's item 8. And so again, I'm going to defer to my fire colleagues on the call. This is an enhancement over the base code requirement to get additional occupant notification located in common areas. Mike or Dave, do you mind commenting on this one?
Yeah, I'll take it then. I'm sure Dave can go a little bit more in depth than I can. A lot of times your base code, depending on occupant load, will put you into where your only fire alarm need is for water flow. That's when the sprinkler goes off. In this case, the enhancement, because the single stair is the occupant notification. So that's your fire alarms in the common spaces. So just a slight different. Coming from my jurisdiction, this is something I've actually already done at the jurisdictional level, to where in City of Lake Stevens, Monroe, if a sprinkler system is installed and a fire alarm system in place, occupant notification is required. And at least in my opinion that I've used in my localities, is it's truly closing the gap in the international code or base code.
Yeah, and I'll speak to it too, is that what the big difference here is that within the model code, it's a manual fire alarm system. For this proposal, we're putting an automatic in. And the reason the automatic is good for this is that it gets a faster response time. We're not waiting for a fire sprinkler to activate. We'll be getting detection, so it gets people out of the building sooner and faster. So for instance, the city of Spokane, this is our base code. We do require automatic for R2 occupancies to be able to get people out of the building faster, but the model code would only require a manual system. So this is a bit of a trade-off because of the single stair and the exit timing for everybody out of the building.
Okay. Chris Russell. Chris, we can't hear you. You're off mute.
Oh. Chris, you went back on mute there.
Is he logging
like-
back in maybe?
Yeah, I think he's logging back in.
Okay.
Can
Go ahead, Ardell.
So, and again, Mike and Dave, feel free to correct me. My understanding also was that model code doesn't require detection, right? And so by adding this, you're trying to improve egress time because people have notification. Is that?
That is correct. We're gonna get notification sooner with detection than we
Yeah.
would for water flow.
Basically gives earlier warning.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, and on the notification, is it correct that all R2 require them at 4 stories in the model code? Is that correct? And so what you're seeing here is an enhancement in the common areas.
It's based on the number of units
Yeah.
on the model code. I have to keep going back to model code because our model code is different. Our within Spokane, we just required in all the R2s for this, but I believe there's just a number of units starts triggering the requirements for the interior detection, as well as potential ADA and low frequency requirements that the model code has.
Just, sorry, quick question to the occupant notification. I think you just said, but just to be clear, we're talking about the strobes and horns, right?
Correct.
That constitutes
Or
occupant.
speakers, depending on if we get a little bit higher, but that depends on the floor height, but we're not gonna get to a high rise, so it would just be horns and strobes for audible, visible.
Okay, thank you.
And see Chris back online as well.
Chris, go ahead if you can. I'm actually not seeing your mute on there.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry about that. My comment was going to be on the notification required in the stairwells at the floor landings. Typically, we don't put horn strobes in the stairwells because it causes confusion. And the point is to get people to the stairs. Once they're there, they can, follow them out. So it's typically not required by the code to put those in there.
So that would be potentially modifying number D there.
Maybe do we want to keep it for exterior stairs, particularly if the exterior stair is not separate? Well, are we require? I guess we're requiring a corridor still, right? Just for the interior. So you could have a exterior stairway with a hallway attached to it that's not separated from the stairway, so there's no door there. And the question would be, would you get notification if there was smoke or something in one of the hallway there? I think that may be what that's after. And again, this, maybe Mike and Dave would have to speak to that, but that's a question I would have. I think you would want that for at least exterior stairs.
Mm-hmm. So one really cool thing about NFPA 72, and Dave, tell me if you remember the addition that came in. I know it was an addition or two ago, they actually do sound pressure studies. So when you talk about doing your plan review and you're looking at something that may or may not be too loud, or in the case that you can't hear, or you get the sound side, there is a sound pressure study that the plan reviewer can require that is currently in NFPA 72, and we should be provided. I know some of the projects I've worked on in the past, I've actually requested the sound pressure study to make sure that that decibel level falls within the, was it less than 90 decibel or 30 over ambient, whatever it may be. And don't hold me to those numbers. But that is in there as a consideration for anything to where it may be too loud or whatnot, especially when you get into the enclosed areas.
Yeah, that's correct, Mike. That basically and we're not necessarily saying there has to be a speaker or a horn at each floor level. So you do, when the designer puts a design together, typically what I've seen is one in the lowest level, one in the highest level for a stairway. You don't necessarily have to have them at every level of the stairway to be able to get the sound levels that you need, minimum sound level. And I've done some sound studies myself where the only time that you can get over the legal amount for hearing loss is actually getting your ear within 1 foot of the device. So basically, it may be loud, but it is not going to hurt people's hearing as long as it's a normal installation. So that's what we've seen in most of the stairways with ours. We still want to have the notification, but I do understand the concern about going through each floor and having the loud thing there is basically spread it over the whole volume of the space, and that seems to work just fine.
Would that have to modify the word all on D?
No,
Okay. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, so I understand the audibility, which that part is fine. We could do a horn in there, but I know one of the specific exceptions for visible alarms in the IBC in 9075 is they don't want them in parts of an exit because, like I said, according to the commentary, it causes confusion with people egressing, and once they're already in the stairwell, they're going out of the building anyway, so you don't need that visible notification. I can understand the audibility if you want it, but I don't think it's a good idea to put the visible notification on the stairs.
Okay, I'm gonna suggest that we move that on for further conversation. That seems like a
Roger, can I suggest breaking that up though?
sure.
I mean, there's 3 things in this. There's the enhancement from the model code from a manual system to an automatic system. There's the second enhancement for horns and strobes in common areas. That's items A, B, and C. And I didn't note this before, but that was based off of 907293, which is Group R2 College and University Building. So again, it's the getting additional notification to enhance the not having the exit, right? So improving on egress time. And there's a third decision point about adding the additional requirement of all main floor landings in the stair. So is it feasible to break this up into those 3 points? Because I heard question around the stairs, but I wasn't
Right.
sure we heard question, or you may be able to get a decision on the
Right.
other 2 points.
I would agree is if we can get consensus on A, B, and C and have item D as a further conversation, but I saw both Spencer and John's hands go up, so what are your thoughts?
Well, I had a question specifically about item B. Am I remembering correctly that there is somewhere else in the proposal that effectively prohibits certain common areas like laundry rooms? And if that's the case, are we going to cause confusion by having references there to something that we're not actually allowing? So I just wanted to flag that.
Just in response to that, I think it doesn't prohibit the laundry rooms and mechanical rooms being in the building. I think it's a matter of communicating with the stair. So you could have separate laundry rooms and things like that that don't go into the stair or don't communicate with the stair. That I think that would be allowed. My question is a little bit about the wording in 8, and this, I don't know if this helps or whatever the conversation here. The requirement in 8 is for an automatic, is for the detection system. that activates a occupant notification system. So I'm not sure if we're, you know, if the question about locations of strobes and horns is really addressed by this. It just says you got to have an occupant notification system. But it also requires that you have the detection system. And maybe that's what you really want. I mean, that's a question, I guess. Do you need the detection in the stairs at all the main floor landings and exterior, you know, for the stairs? And maybe that's a separate question there. I think you want the detection. Now, whether you put what you do with the strobes and the horns is a different issue.
That kind of makes sense to me, but no, Andy?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that eight's the driving factor for the need of the system. Let the model code portion drive where they're supposed to be located. Because that's not gonna change, right? That's just my 2 cents.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm hearing, just so I can clarify that, are we saying that we just accept A, but not A, B, C, or D?
That would be my suggestion, yes.
Would the model code require these locations?
In some areas, yes.
What would be the enhancement? I mean, the Ardell started with a suggestion that this is an enhancement, that it's automatic and that the occupant notification is connected, which made a lot of sense. But if we're now suggesting that we're gonna go back, I guess you're saying that that is still an enhancement, but the locations would be per the model code. That's what you said, Andy?
Well, yeah, that's kind of my understanding of it, is we're just trying to say that it has to have this automatic smoke and fire detection system that activates, right? The occupant notification system.
I get,
The NFPA guidelines are going to dictate kind of how that's supposed to be installed, and then the code kind of tells us where those notification systems are supposed to be located.
I think the difference here, Andy, is the 907293 is for Group R2 college and university buildings. It is an enhancement over an R2 locations, is what I understand, just a base R2 apartment location. So I guess my question then to the fire folks is, where would detection be located in an R2 apartment building? And then wait, I got this wrong. So there's the detection part, and then, as John said, the horns and strobes. So is there, like, what would the base code say?
I'm speaking a little bit out of it because Spokane's a little bit more restrictive for our fire alarm requirements, but I believe that when we have enclosed corridors, those stairwells, those types of things, that there's still requirements from 90729 for fire alarm in those areas. That's what I'm kind of thinking, maybe we want to add the requirements of 90729 to the to 907.5. And it just, we could eliminate A, B, C, or D. Mike, do you think that's reasonable?
Yeah, and in fact, just coming back to the base requirements, and you were all over it, Dave, when you mentioned a minute ago, to get a manual fire alarm system, like Dave mentioned, in an R2, a couple things have to happen, and it's any of the three. First off, a dwelling or sleeping unit is located 3 or more stories above the lowest level of exit discharge. The dwelling or sleeping unit is 1 story below the level of discharge, or the building contains more than 16 dwelling units. So that's first off, to even get the manual system with, and that's a pull station that someone goes up and physically pulls after they see an emergency to get in. So the only thing this building is getting with that sprinkler system is just water flow unless we modify the base. As far as your smoke alarms, that detection, that's all going to be in compliance with section 907-211. So the single and multi-station are already required under base code. What we're looking for is that egress means out in the corridors, which David already mentioned. And then again, adding on top of that manual fire alarm system, which the manual fire alarm is the pull station. We add in the detection's going to hit it first, and then we have the occupant notification, which is the horns and strobes. Chris, since I got you, I see your hand up. Where was the exemption you were looking at for the egress corridors? And the only reason I asked that is the only thing I found in the fire code version was really just related to I2 occupancies. Where are you seeing that, bud?
It's under 907.523 for visible alarms. When you look at exception number 2, where it shall not be required in exits as defined by chapter 2.
Sounds good. And then once you receive that invoice, just
I'm scrolling as fast as I can. I appreciate you giving me that. Okay, cool deal. Are you looking at, is that number 5 on the exceptions?
Number 2, shall not be required in exits as defined in chapter 2.
Gotcha.
The stairs would be part of that.
Okay, cool deal. Hey, appreciate that.
All right, so Mike, you're in support of getting rid of all 4 of the A, B, C, and D? We're just saying that you have to have a smoke and fire detection that activates the occupant notification system. And we don't need to identify the locations.
If the intent is to add the smoke and fire detection system and then let the base code drive the requirements of those places, then we should be good to go. Does that sound right, Dave? Because our addition to the base code is getting the smoke, fire, and
automatic
notification into the less than 3 stories, less than 16 units.
Okay.
And then NFPA 72 would drive the rest, I believe.
Yes.
Marcus, you haven't weighed in yet.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what's going on with my video, but you guys can hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. It was more just a clarifying question because I heard from Ardell and Mike in terms of, so the just so I can understand, so the enhancement is something that is generally already kind of required for basically kind of like college dorms or college type of housing. And this would be something that would be pulling in an enhancement for this type of structure on below 4 stories, essentially, and lower occupancy of less than 16 units, even though normally it would be greater than 16 units. Is that how I should understand that?
I think it just got stricken.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, Chris, your hand is still up. Do you have another, or Marcus, are you done or not?
No, I think I'm done. I think that helps answer. I was gonna bring up the thing of just occupation. These buildings might be lower occupant type of buildings, but that makes sense then.
Okay. So Chris, your hand is still up. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just, from what I understand, the addition of the detection in the common spaces, laundry rooms, and corridors, and stairwells, that would be for your base R2. And then that isn't normally required in an R2. So you don't have corridor detection typically, or the laundry room, unless you're doing a dormitory. And then there's some exceptions for sprinklers as well with that. So if the idea is to provide early detection because you cut out one of the exits, then I would think that the A, B, C, and D would need to remain to tell us where to put that additional detection, because the base code R2 isn't going to require that detection.
But again, the base code is a manual system, and we're basically saying we're putting in an automatic system. So I think that's going to address that.
Ken?
If you're going to go with the automatic and we're kind of using that college university, is the intent to connect the single and multiple station alarms that was in NOAA 907.11 that Mike was talking about? Because 907.2.9.3, the last paragraph, talks about interconnecting them. I advise against that in these scenarios just because of nuisance alarms, but it's up to you guys.
John?
So I'm a little confused now. So the base code would not require detection in the A, B, C, and D? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
In the apartment building?
Correct.
It sure seems to me that we would want that in there again to get you, because of the the early warning for the single exit. You want to get notification to people as soon as possible, and depending on where the source of the fire is and what's going on, sure seems to me that you'd want it. Laundry rooms, if they're separated and things like that, they're not what's the word, always occupied. I'll use that. And so you can get something started in there, and it's going to take some time before it gets detected. It sure seems to me that you want to have some detection in there. And same thing in the corridors and in the common spaces, in any common spaces. You want to get that early warning to get people out of that building as soon as possible. Again, the base code is predicated on having 2 exits. So I don't know, that I'd really have a problem with getting rid of A, B, C, and D if they're not required already.
Hey, Dave?
Again, I'm going to reiterate that the base code is a manual system. So there is no detection at all, but we're calling out that an automatic smoke and fire detection system is provided for this. So in my opinion, it addresses this already.
Where's the detection going to be?
In the building.
We're in the building.
Where else would it be?
No,
there's no
But, like-
exception. There's no exception. It says an automatic smoke and fire detection system shall be in the building,
So where do you put the detectors?
in every room.
Every room.
Yep. That's not necessarily the dwelling units, but any other place that's there. What else are we going to have in this building? There's no other occupancy being allowed in for these occupancies. It's all residential. I'm even questioning we're gonna have a laundry room. I don't think we'll have a laundry room. Kind of concerned we'd even have a mechanical room or a storage room, because those would be in the basement or some other place like that. I don't think that, I think basically saying automatic fire smoke and fire detection system is clear enough to be able to say that where the public is going to be able to get through the building, including the stairways, the corridors, that will be an automatic smoke and fire detection system.
Mike, go ahead.
I appreciate it. Hey, John, I was listening to you, and I think I know exactly where you're coming from. So if you go through 907, the first part of 907 says, thou shalt have a fire detection system in this type of occupancy under these conditions. As you move through the code, it says, thou shalt have occupant notification in these places. And then another section, thou shalt have detection in these places. I think one of the things I wouldn't mind recommending to the group to be more clear as we do a little rewrite on that and follow the way, or at least the pathway of the model code, where we say what type of system is required, where audio visual is required, and where initiating devices or detection is required. And hopefully that would take away some of that confusion.
Okay.
Can I ask a clarifying?
Yeah.
Mike, you just referenced 907.211.2. Would that be where an R2, so is 907.211.2 the language of where those initiating devices would be located?
Just reading that real quick, that's your single and multi-station smoke alarms. It's not a
It's not your fire.
smoke detector, and there are two different things. Smoke alarm is what you normally see in your apartments or your 1 and 2 family residential. So they're the actual sounding device. They're different from a smoke detector. A smoke detector's sole purpose is initiation.
So
So it's really senses
907.211.7?
smoke. Huh?
Is it 907.211.7 then?
Going down, correct. Yep. So you got two different things. Smoke detection separate from your single and multi-station smoke alarm. You can even see the terminology change. So smoke
Yep.
alarm in home that senses smoke, it sounds an alarm. Smoke detection, there is no notification with it. It goes to the central panel, then back out to the occupant notification system. So two different purposes.
Thank you.
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, so before I talk about what I was going to mention, that 907.211.7 though is an alternative to using smoke alarms. It's just allowing you to use smoke detectors in place of smoke alarms. But I agree with what Mike was saying about pointing out where the detection needs to be, because when automatic detection is required, each section of 907.2 tells you where that needs to be. My concern with not telling us where the detection needs to be is people are going to default to NFPA 72 total coverage, and we're going to end up with smoke detectors in the attics and interstitial spaces and just everywhere.
Okay, which doesn't make sense to me, but okay. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things I also want to bring up is it's a little confusing in the code. How it puts it together is low frequency. Low frequency is in the model code now. So we have to have, we can't use single station, multiple station devices in the dwelling units because they currently cannot do low frequency. The code is basically acknowledging that, basically saying that you have to have a smoke detector within the room, or just enunciator. You could use a single station detector with a low frequency base, but that's the base still has to be tied into the fire alarm system. So there's another piece to this that is not as clear in the codes as it should be, but the low frequency is a key issue.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, speaking to the low frequency, that is true. Currently, there is no listed smoke alarm that meets the low frequency requirements. So we are putting in system smoke detectors where the low frequency alarms, smoke alarms will be required. But UL, I think it's the 217 10th edition, has metrics for testing and approving a low frequency smoke alarm. Nobody has one yet, but eventually they will. And it would be great if we didn't codify something that didn't allow us to use those in the future.
Okay, I'm going to make the assumption that we're not ready to get consensus on this. I think it's John who said, I also agree, if there are laundry rooms, mechanic rooms, I think they should have detectors in them. So I'm not sure if those got excluded up above or not. So
Roger,
I'd have to confirm that. Yeah, go ahead, John.
you may be able to get consensus on automatic. We want automatic.
Yeah. Is it worthwhile to do that?
I think it's a starting point.
Is that, so is there consensus that the language, most of the first sentence up until you're referring to the following locations, is there consensus on that? Is anybody opposed to that we need to make it automatic and then it needs to activate the occupant notification? So hearing none, Dustin, I'm not sure exactly how you're gonna put this in the spreadsheet, but I think yes, we all agree that the sentence structure in number 8 is required. The question is where they're located and where the direction is within the code. Do we list it? Is it what's referenced in the model code? And I would ask folks, this will come up on our, my hope is that we can start listing, my plan would be once we get all the way through the document and we go back up and start talking about it, that we can assign some dates so people can know when we're going to address this particular issue and come prepared and so. Okay. Does that make sense? So those need to be yellow, yeah. Exit access corridor required. Is that number 9? Or
Yes.
10?
Number 9.
Number 9.
So, this is getting into exit access, exit and exit discharge. So those are the components of egress, once you leave your unit door. So this is requiring a rated corridor from the unit to the stair. And it's requiring a minimum rating of a half hour. And so there is a corridor requirement in the base code, but at a low occupant load, it could reduce to 0 in a sprinkled building. And so this is placing it at a minimum half hour. So there's an enhancement in this. And so Dustin, I don't know if you want to show the base
You happen to know the
code here.
section number? I can pop it up pretty quick, but the section number I won't know right off the top of my head.
Hold on, I've got the fire code open. It's 1020. Table 1020.2. So for an R occupancy, it has to be sprinkled, and the corridor system that is if you have a 13 or 13R system and an occupant load greater than 10, then the requirement is for a half hour corridor fire resistance rating. And then what this does is says that the enhancement is that it's for all occupant loads. So if you want to go back to what's the floor plate that's associated with 10 occupants, it would be 2,000 square feet because it's 2,000 square feet per occupant for an R occupancy. So this is saying that you should always have at least a half hour rated corridor, where the model code would allow you to go to 0.
Arda, you said it's 200 per occupant? So 2,000 square feet for the 10 occupants.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would say it's
So-
not very difficult to get a half-hour rating. I think half-inch chipboard gets you
Yeah.
half hour.
Spencer?
Yeah, I'm kind of confused by the last two sentences. Dwelling unit doors shall not open directly into an interior exit stairway. Dwelling unit. Oh, never mind. I was misreading. Interior versus exterior. My fault.
Yeah, so that's Spencer, in the base code, you can have units open directly into the stair. And what this is doing is if you think about it, 4 units opening directly into a stair, that means any one fire in any unit exposes the stair. And so what this is explicitly prohibiting is the dwelling unit from opening directly into that interior exit stair. And so by allowing it to open into a corridor, you still have a protected path to the stair. And yes, that corridor might be compromised, but that the stair itself would not be.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And then the last sentence, as you said, Spencer, is to address, is to say that that doesn't apply to an exterior exit stair where it would be able to vent directly to the exterior.
Okay, is there consensus or is anybody concerned about? It sounds to me like number 9 is a thumbs up. So whatever line that is, Dustin, on our spreadsheet.
Yep. So that's lines 20 and 21, Dustin.
And did we say that we want to maintain the 1 hour, or no, sorry. Never mind. I'm reading the different columns. So
Yep.
we want to have these over there. So we definitely
Yep.
want the corridor. We want to maintain the half-hour minimum, and it sounds like we are A-okay on those.
Jeremy?
Yes, sir. I've got one comment maybe. Noticing this minimum half-hour fire resistant rated corridor. Correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that reduction in that corridor only allowed with an NFPA 13 system, meaning the 13R doesn't get you that reduction in the corridor rating? Just a pointer back to our earlier discussion about the 13 versus 13R. If my memory serves correct, that is a reduction you get only with a full 13 system.
Not at the model level. Maybe is there a state amendment on that, Jeremy?
I'd have to dive into it. So you say you don't need a 13 to get that reduction?
Yeah, if you look at that footnote C that Dustin's showing up right now, it says 30311 or 30312, which would allow you a 13 or a 13R to get that reduction.
Very cool. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't going to be an inconsistency if we go with the 13R option. So perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
So somebody's hand go up but come down. Any other questions? Okay. Dustin, we're gonna assume that those are a go.
Yes.
So not highlighted. What is the next one? You got a control over the
So
Yep.
exit access, max corridor travel distance.
travel distance.
And this is a bit of a legacy thing. So we've capped it at 20 feet from when you leave your entry or your exit, your door, from you leave your unit to getting to the stair, and minimizing that distance is again to minimize the egress time overall. And then the 20 is based out of some legacy code language. I don't know, John, if you'd be able to speak to the 20 feet.
Yeah, it has to do with way back, the dead end corridor used to be 20 feet, and then then they went up to 25. I think Seattle maintained the 20 feet for a while, but we left it for this for the single
For
legs.
this code.
Yeah, just for the single exit again, to minimize your time of exiting and time of exposure until you get to someplace safe.
I'm going to ask the question just from an architectural perspective. If you have thinking of the configuration of a corridor with a stair, assuming they are parallel, the length of a stair is more than 20 feet, 2 landings and a stair. I don't know what that is off the top of my head. I think it's about 20 feet. I'm wondering if the 20-foot distance in that configuration may not work. You know,
The-
go ahead, John.
A switchback stair is not 20 feet long, I don't think.
Isn't it?
No, I think it's less than that.
Okay.
But your typical, especially since, you know, these are, if you're low occupant load, and depending what we do with exit width, you can have a 3-foot, you can have 3-foot landings if, you know, and a 3-foot wide stair. So that's not, I don't think it's that long in typically from what I remember seeing. But this is so this is a corridor that then leads to that stair. I'm not sure what you meant by in parallel, but
well, if the just the long dimension of the stair is parallel with the corridor, what is that dimension? And I guess at 20 feet, can you have a door on the intermediate landing side? And that'd be less than 20 feet of travel from that door to the entry of the stair. And I think the answer is probably yes. I don't think that would be too restrictive. Spencer.
Roger, I'm trying to understand. So your question is that if you're designing a building and you have stairwell, it would make sense for the hallway serving the units on that floor to essentially parallel the stairwell in certain circumstances, and that's why you're asking about the 20 feet?
Yeah, I think it could. So if the stair is parallel, and John, I don't know if it's 20 feet, is it 15 feet? What is a scissor stair? I don't know that off the top of my head. It's got to be about 15 feet with 2 landings and
somewhere around 15 is probably close. Yeah.
So a 20-foot corridor, if it's 15 feet, you would have 5 feet of that corridor extending beyond the stair, which would get you access to that side. That's why I kind of in my brain worked through it that the 20 feet would still be, you know, allow you access around a stair and give people flexibility of where that stair goes. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if there's any design restrictions as far as the location of the stair that are associated with that 20 feet. It's the length of, as long as you can get to that stair within 20 feet from every unit door on that floor.
Yeah. Okay. I answered my question. Any other questions, concerns, or do we put that in the consensus that the 20 feet is good, proper? Okay, next item. Limit single exit on property. I'm assuming that's number 12. I haven't read it.
No, it's way down. Sorry, this is a little out of order. If you want to skip that right now and come.
Let's go by the spreadsheet.
Okay, so, and this is, again, I'm gonna defer to John on this, but if you had anything else to add, but this did not exist in the Seattle provisions originally, and then it came in because we were starting to see multiple single exit buildings on the same lot that were strung, you know, together. And so at a certain point, you know, if you've got more than 2 single exit buildings on the same lot, it's all one building, just have a 2 exit building. And so that's my anecdotal knowledge of this. John, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, what happened is that we started seeing designs of very large floor plates that if you think of a square building, and you know, it'd be hard to do. It's hard to do without drawings. But if you think of a square build, a large floor plate that's square, and then divide that with firewalls, making a cruciform firewall, basically dividing into 4 quadrants, and then each of those quadrants has a single stair in it. that's the design we started, seeing. And our feeling was, no, that's one big floor plate. You should be just getting us 2 exits off of that. And it didn't make a lot of sense for us to be, again, this very large floor plate. The idea of this single exit originally was all about infill lots, small infill lots, and was not intended to be for a large build, several large buildings. So that was the genesis of that one. I don't think we would necessarily object to if you have I don't know, let's go to the multiplex. You got a 6-plex or even an 8-plex, whatever, and you start stringing them, side by side, like the old apartment designs with an exterior stair and things like that. You get a little pods, with the number of units. I don't think it was intended to restrict those. And those typically would not be using this provision anyway. So yeah, that was the genesis of this.
Spencer?
Yeah, I guess my first question from the planner side, I mean, if you're saying you can only have up to 2 on a lot, it wouldn't be hard for somebody to just plat lots strategically so that you can do it anyway. So I'm not sure this actually prevents that problem. And then, I mean, I think, yes, the single stair does help with small infill projects, but my understanding is that it's also important in terms of there's a financial aspect here, which is that a regular dual exit building dedicates significantly more amounts of space to non-revenue purposes, essentially. So even in larger contexts, if a single stair is feasible, it could end up reducing costs, which was, I think, one of the main purposes of the legislation.
Marcus?
Yeah, I would just add to that in the sense of like the stringing along or attached single stair buildings. There's a lot of situations where you have a very large lot. So for instance, we have a lot of light rail expansion and TOD and bus rapid transit, and those supply lots or supplemental lots after construction is done are very large lots, and you could leave that up to a large building with 2 stairs, but the orientation of those buildings divides up the units to just potentially or generally have a very high level of single looking towards one direction, or basically single unit buildings or single unit dwelling units, so 1-bedrooms, studios. And you miss out on the opportunity, which you see in other countries, to ring out big projects with a bunch of attached single stair buildings to allow more family size units, different variety of units, get similar size buildings with a different unit mix. And another thing that should just be mentioned is as you count up all those different type of things, you actually end up with more stairs, more elevators, potentially more dividing and protection between individual buildings, because I would push back on the sense that it's not one large building, it's multiple small buildings to look like attached to each other as kind of the normal urban fabric as we developed cities through, the early 1900s into the 60s, 70s, all that different type of stuff. So it's kind of a design limitation, and you could split up lots and do subdivisions, but a lot of zoning laws also have setbacks. So you can't actually attach these buildings to each other once you do lot divisions. If you have a large lot and you subdivide them, you have to do setbacks between those structures, which means you have gaps in between those different things, which loses development space and revenue on those type of things. So I think this is one of those things that you see in other countries they have that opportunity to do that type of stuff, and think it's an opportunity to allow that here and this update.
Yeah, I was, John, as you were describing the cruciform firewalls and 4, I am not sure why we wouldn't allow that if we have and I would need to think about it a little bit more, which is why I'm going to suggest that we put this off to further conversation, this particular item, but I wouldn't want to limit that at this point. I agree, we're trying to, expand opportunities for housing, allowing people to be creative, I think, but at the same time, maintaining our, the safety. But I just, with your description of the cruciform firewalls, I don't know if it would make sense to do it, because I agree, now you have four four stairs and exits. Is that less than just the two exit? And I don't know the answer to that, but I think we should.
Do you need to come back to it, Roger, or do you want people to vote on it? We haven't heard a lot of support to maintain it.
Sure. Well, Ardell, I guess I'm wondering, is there anything else in here that does limit? I mean, could somebody do 12 single exits? Back to back, and is that too much? I don't know.
Yeah, they could.
Okay.
If they were individual. So sorry, this is super crude, but that's the cruciform, right? It's just 4 units, right?
Yeah.
Each one has a stair, and so multiply that out to however many buildings, but each one would be serving those, that stair would still be under the limitations of the scoping.
Okay. Richard?
Roger, I think, well, it goes back to what Marcus was saying about if you had a situation like that, you'd have 12 stairs, 12 elevators potentially. I mean, at some point, it's kind of a self-limiting thing. I'm not sure how that plays into affordability when you could probably make do with, 2 or 3 stairs and 1 or 2 elevators, and if you had that kind of property.
Yeah.
In one
Certainly
overall building.
the cost of the elevator will drive that discussion quickly. Right. So, or limit that quickly. I will be fine. Is there consensus that we would, so what, Ardell, you're saying get rid of that?
I'm saying you could keep the language, you could modify the language, or you could strike it. I think I heard more testimony around striking it.
And I would support that. I just am a little bit, I feel like I need to think about it a little bit more, but
okay.
What does everybody else think? Do we put it in there to strike that language, but put it in yellow so that we can come back and revisit it? Or
Well, Roger, one of the things we did in the previous kind of approvals of this language is that the motion was to provisionally approve it, and we could, come back and discuss further. But we can strike it, mark it in yellow. Any of the options are really available to us at this moment.
Well, if there's consensus, I would, it sounds to me like striking it makes the most sense, but if there is any hesitancy to striking that, I am going to assume that silence means that we should go ahead and strike that. And as always, I'm going to say, I think at this point, everything is provisional, even the sprinklers, whether it's 13R, 13, that may impact other things. So we may need to go back, but okay. Exit door swing and direction of travel.
This is, where did I have that written? Item 12. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the model code section that requires. Door swing.
Ten 121.
Thank you. So item 12 has quite a bit listed here.
Yeah.
First section is it can be either an interior or exterior stair. The second is that it be pressurized. The third is the item that we're coming on right now. Doors in the stairway shall swing into the interior exit stairway regardless of the occupant load served. And that is an enhancement to 10.10.121, which is the base code requirement that says side hinge swinging doors shall swing in the direction of travel where serving a room or an area containing an occupant load of 50 or more persons. And so this is because of the occupant load threshold for direction of swing. This is actually an enhancement in that it requires that the door swing in the direction of travel regardless of occupant load.
John?
Yeah, actually, and the other part of it was that it's tied in closely with the pressurization. In this case, if you got an interior stair, the pressurization would tend to push the doors open and they may not close. Or it may be more difficult to get them to close automatically, which they're supposed to do once they've been opened. So the idea was to basically use, not try to counteract or have to counteract the pressurization and make sure those doors get closed.
Okay.
So the two are more, it's more about tying the two together with the pressurization. If you don't have pressurization, then there's less of an issue.
And the pressurization is row 27 down there, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this whole number 12 is about protecting the stair with
Yeah.
pressurization and the shaft. If it is hoistway protection is required per item 13, but if you're using stairway, actually, I'm sorry, I'm combining these. 12 is specifically just the stair pressurization.
Okay, can we, the door swing makes a lot of sense to me, assuming it is pressurized. And is there a cost difference between swinging into or out of? I wouldn't think so. I mean, it's probably the same door.
No, yeah, there's no difference in the
Yeah.
hardware things. It's more a matter of there are certain requirements for stair width and things like that. If the door swings into the landing, then you have to make sure you got clearances.
Okay, and so let's talk about the pressurization. Are we sure that it is required?
So again, the concept for this proposal is that the one stair that you have is a really good clean stair, not filled with smoke. And the pressurization is the protection of the stair, additional protection to the stair.
Okay.
Yeah, you got the choice of either a pressurized interior stair or an exterior stair.
Okay.
The exterior stair would not require the pressurization.
Okay. That makes sense to me. Jeremy?
My 2 cents is that with the elimination of the base code requirement for the additional exit, with the elimination of that stair, that this number 12 is important and we should keep it. That's my 2 cents anyways.
Yeah.
So.
I agree with you. I'm trying to understand it, but I agree with you. Richard?
And Roger, and also to some degree, to a lesser degree, it also ties in, dovetails with the state allowance for 5A buildings with the extra story that you can take. That's dependent upon pressurization. So kind of it's consistent, I guess, if nothing else.
How about the legally required standby power? Is this required? So is that a generator? Is this, and so are we all of a sudden requiring that there's a generator and all that goes into having a generator?
That's also coming from 504.41. That language.
Okay, so that answer is yes, there will be a generator required.
Yes.
Okay.
What's the word the electrical code uses? Something like a reliable source of secondary power.
Yeah, and I think we pointed this out in a previous meeting. There's a state amendment. I'm not sure what the status of it is, but it was like Eric Vandermeer submitted it. I had made an initial proposal to change the different backup options available. Don't have to go into great detail on that, but it's a little bit different from what's shown here on the screen. It references NFPA 70 and lays out 4 different options for allowable standby power systems.
Question, Rich, in that allowable standby power system, are nuclear plants involved in that? Is that one of your options? Because
I think that's an alternate method, Jeremy.
Okay, because I happen to have a reactor on campus at WSU, and I allow that. I allow that for backup if they
It would be an alternate
have
method.
their own power grid that just runs that. So,
Mr. Ritter, welcome.
Greetings. Good conversation. Just curious, with someone with knowledge, what are those 4 different systems? Is a battery system emerging?
Assuming this proposal, I can't remember what the vote was on this, but what he laid out was generator set, stored energy power supply systems, separate service, or microgrid systems. Missing is tap ahead of the main. That's allowed per NFPA 70, but it's specifically not allowed per state requirements.
Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like that one, which is part of the pressurization, row 25, there's consensus that we need pressurization. I think that we probably do need to make sure that we do some correlation with that code amendment that's out there. So, Dustin, I think that we are suggesting yes, and on the legally required standby power permitted, I think we just need to correlate. You can make that as a comment off on the right, correlate with code change proposals. I'm not sure what the number is, but
I think
GP 114.
And Dustin, I would say that it's not that the standby power is permitted, it's required.
Required.
It's a backup system.
okay. And did we also have that an exterior stair is permitted? I think that has been part of our assumptions. Is there any concern about an exterior stair? I don't think so. Okay. Exit rating for code for number of stories. The exit rating and the exit door staging, is that also part of 12?
That's just talking about the overall egress system, Roger. They're not explicitly called out as an enhancement because it's just going with the base code. So I don't know if do you want to discuss that at all, but there's the proposal went with the base code requirement for both the rating of the shaft enclosure for the stair and the exit doors themselves.
I don't need to.
It depends on the number of stories, and that's no change or enhancement. It's just going along with the base code.
I don't need to revisit it. I just want to remind myself that it's very clear that these are special requirements, but everything else is per the code, right, in the appendix.
Correct.
So I'm fine with that. Stairway penthouse is the same. Okay, we're at
I don't know that before we leave the stair itself,
Okay.
and go into exit discharge or EEROs, do you want to talk about stair width at all? So again, right now it's per code. I don't know if there's any request for discussion otherwise. And why I bring that up is because at some of the discussions at the national level and in other countries, I've been talking to Vancouver this week, in Canada, and the Canadian code writers. There has been discussion on increasing the width of the stair to allow firefighters to go up as people egress down. And I think that's related to response times. And what's your assumption about that?
I think we
Sorry,
should talk
it's
about
not
that.
it's not on the table, and it is something that's been discussed nationally.
I think we should talk about it. I know that's one of the things that I had popped in my head when we talked about this. And I guess I would ask for the fire folks. I know that's part of the conversation often.
And just from what is the code minimum, the stairway serving an occupant load of less than 50 can be, and shall have a width of not less than 36 inches. And that's out of 1011.2.
And more than 50 requires 44 inches.
Correct.
What was that, John? When does it go?
More than 50 or more is it? The 50 is like the threshold. I can't remember which side it goes on, but you require 44 inches above that 50 threshold.
Okay. Dave?
Yeah, speaking from the fire standpoint, obviously we'd love to have more stairway. Like it's just a matter of kind of a modeling situation as to how long people are going to be able to take to get out of the building versus then beginning response time to be able to show up to get to the building and then having our guys going up. I don't know how much traffic we're going to have with that, and it all depends on there's been discussion of going to 5 units and things like that too. So I think an analysis would have to be done to see if the timing would be able to work with that. But obviously, if there's an interest in making it bigger, my concern is, well, now we're putting more cost into the building. But I would definitely support wider stairs if we could get them.
Can Ardell or somebody, can you confirm that? So are you calculating the occupant load on each floor that exceeds
Yes.
50? Is that?
Yes.
So a floor with an occupant, and how many square feet is 50?
50 times 200, 10,000.
Yeah, 10,000 square feet. It seems to me like right now it would be per code, right? So if you're less
Yes.
than 50 per floor, it would be 36.
Yes.
For more than 50, you'd have to go to 44. I think I would be supportive of just per the base code, but I want to offer, certainly it's a point of conversation, and is it required? And if it is okay for the code, and for the current code, why would it be different here? I suppose you've got the extra firefighters could go up the other stair, or the chances that you have occupants coming down and firefighters going up at the same time would be reduced. But I don't know. I'm speaking and I'm not very knowledgeable. Dustin, I'm going to suggest that we keep that as yellow. I think people need to think about it a little bit. I would, from a cost perspective, I don't want to add cost I understand we would like you know, the wider stairs. I understand that. It's what's the real argument? Why is this different than a, you know, a per code building? So, Jeremy?
Just my thoughts. One of the reasons why it's a little different than per code building is we're putting a whole lot of action into one stair. We're putting a whole lot into it. Normally in these buildings, when you aren't limited to one stair, you know, that design professional is going to on the plan sheets for the life safety, they're going to split that occupant load into opposite stairs. So assuming half occupancy is going down one stair, half the other, so on and so forth. When you're down to one exit stair, we know that everyone is going to be using that single stair. Every single person will be using that stair. And then in addition to that, it's going to be the only fire access to come from the ground. So it's just, we're putting all of our eggs in one basket, if you will, and then that basket's still at that code minimum width. It's worth talking about. So yeah, I agree. I think we should keep it highlighted at least.
Okay. All right. Do we go back to EERO? Row 30. And Ardell, if you, oh, Jeremy, your hand, is that still? Yeah, okay.
So the code has provisions for emergency escape and rescue openings in 1031. And this proposal is an enhancement over the code requirement and requires EEROs for all sleeping rooms and all stories. Where, hold on, let me get to the code. 1031 for single exit buildings, and this would be adding it to as another type of single exit building. EROs in 1031.2.1 are required below the 4th story in sleeping rooms below the 4th story. So this is all stories. And that's a proposed enhancement, again, for redundancy, because we have one exit only. This is something that was discussed quite a bit, and I think the model code only requires it below the 4th story because there's an expectation that people aren't using them above at the 4th story and higher.
Not using them higher because
it's far to jump.
And
yeah. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I believe one of the things that we had the discussion between fire marshals and the building officials is that we are looking at having professional firefighters here with a higher level of departments to be able to do things, so we'd be able to have aerial access. And if we had to, if the stairway was clogged or other things we did, we could actually get people out to the upper windows that were above the 4th floor. So that was the suggestion for that, is being able to provide another pathway to be able to provide rescue if we had to, if something went serious with that. So that was, I think, part of what the discussion came to develop that.
John?
yeah, and related to that, and I'll ask Dave and to confirm the part of the reason again for the 4th story below the 4th story is because your typical 35-foot ladder won't get there above that.
Correct.
Okay. So the proposal now, according to number 17 on our list, does have them in all rooms, right? And
Correct.
that's, Ardell, that was kind of you talked about it a bunch. You said that was the conclusion of the WABO group.
Correct. And that was in conjunction with the fire marshals to require it on all stories. And then that does give a secondary exit from sleeping rooms on all stories because they only have access to one exit. Yeah, and then the the ability to access to upper stories is going to drive aerial access as well.
Mhm. Which at this point, I don't believe that we are requiring aerial access, but it is part of that professional fire department description. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yes.
So it's probable that it's not a requirement that there's aerial access. Okay. Jeremy.
If I was in a sleeping room 5, 6, 7 stories up and my only exit was blocked with fire, I would rather jump to my death and die on impact than burn alive. So I'll take an EERO, even if the fire department have too small of a truck.
Okay.
ESO.
Wow.
Mhm.
Am I the old movies where there was a net at the bottom? Does that happen anymore? Where people can jump into a net?
Only in amusement shows.
Okay. Ken, go ahead.
Just to add to Jeremy, it also just gives the individual ability to have their own ladder if they would like to, and have a window that's operable to open up to get out. So it's more than just jumping.
Okay. Sounds like there's consensus on that one. What is ERO access to yard? Oh,
So
and that per code.
Yep. When you reference the emergency escape and rescue openings, and we'll have to update, I think it's 1031 now as the code reference, so I apologize for that. Complying with that section means complying with the language that says such openings shall open directly into a public way or to a yard or court that opens to a public way. And it's giving the fire department the ability to access that EERO. Yard or court are defined terms in the code. So a yard, hold on, I gotta get to the definitions. And what I'm trying to lean into here is there's no dimensional requirements. It's right now it's per code. So a yard in the code is an open space other than a court, unobstructed from ground to sky, except where specifically provided by this code on a lot on which a building is situated. And that again is the idea is that yard, the window opens onto a yard or court, and then that can access the right of way. Going to yard or court provisions, that's in section 1205. And this is a dimensional requirement. Yards shall be not less than 3 feet for buildings 2 stories or less above grade. There is a setback distance as you go up in the number of stories in section 1205 too. And Dustin, do you want to show that section, please?
Yeah. Is it 1205 too?
Yes, please.
Okay, 1 second.
This is a bit in the weeds, but I just want to make sure we understand when we have a requirement for EEROs, what else comes with that.
And that, Dave Cocott, is that not part of the emergency rule that the council's supposed to consider? The size of that?
That definitely can be considered as part of that, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
But this is just saying that the EERO has to access to that. We're not specifying what the dimensions of that are.
You are in 1205 too.
Right. And I think that Dave, isn't the proposal that's in front of the council is to modify that to 5 feet? I don't remember the details. I'd have to dig it back up, but
That would, for accesses to the sides of buildings that don't face an opening or to a public way. I
okay,
think that this is slightly different than that, but I think it also allows it to go 2 stories above grade is 3 feet. Once you go an additional 4, you go up another foot. That is going to be almost essentially exactly what we're talking about with the other proposals. So,
okay,
So what this gets you though, is that yards are 3 feet for 2 stories or less, and they go up a foot in minimum yard width as you go up number of stories.
Mhm.
So if I'm at 2 feet, sorry, pardon me, 2 stories with 3 feet, at 6 stories, I'd be 7 foot, a 7-foot yard.
okay.
For where the EERO is open onto.
Right.
So we just have it per code right now. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Do we have general consensus that per code is appropriate? Okay. I am going to, if you can put per code in there, I'm going to apologize to everybody. We've been going for an hour and 45 minutes and I haven't taken a break. I need a break, so I'm going to suggest that we pause the meeting and come back at call it 2:55. Hello, all. Dustin, can you page down for me? I wanted to look where we're at in the electrical room. Okay. Um, I don't know if Ardell is back yet.
I'm here.
Okay. So the next the next 3 are all exit discharge.
So that's item 15.
Yes. Opening protection required.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get to the provisions. 1029. So an egress court is a component of the egress system. So once you leave the stair, you're in exit discharge. And that's what this does is it addresses, sorry, look at these. Item 16 is opening protection of the exit discharge. So the idea is that when I leave the building, I need to have either 2 ways to go. But if I don't, then openings need to be protected. So that if there was a fire in that opening and I was trying to egress past it, that I would be going past protected openings. So, Dustin, can you look at 1029.3 in the model code. So this is saying where an egress court serving a building and or portion thereof less than 10 feet in width, that the walls are 1 hour rated and have 3/4 hour opening protection. There is an exception here for egress court serving an occupant load less than 10. And what the enhancement would be is to require opening protection. If you want to go back to the code proposal, please. Regardless of occupant load.
John?
Sorry,
Did I
Don.
get that right? Sorry, I'm totally mixing this up.
Yeah, I think 16 is about just protecting the
That's just the
stairway.
stair, yeah.
Yeah. I think the 15 is
15 is though, yeah.
It doesn't really say you need protection of the openings. Just says you can't exit into a narrow side yard unless you've got 2 ways to go. Is the point of 15.
Sorry, I'm talking off Seattle changes here, so that's probably, I'm screwing this up. John's got it right. So it is specifically item 15. So it is just going to be the model code requirements for opening protection of the egress court that Dustin just showed. And then this is saying that you should be able to step away from the building or exit in 2 directions. That's the sort of the intent of item 15. So where the court depth exceeds the court width gives you room to move away from the building.
The depth exceeds the width.
So again, think of a building with a narrow side yard and the stair dumps into the side yard. So the depth would be the direction of travel, the width would be, perpendicular to that. So if you were to essentially if you exit to the front of the building, and there's you've got direct access to the right of way and things like that, you can move away from the building and not be concerned about exposure to the fire. If you're in a narrow side yard, you have to be able, again, your fire could affect the pathway to the right of way. And so the idea is that either, you stick your head out of the door when you hit the side yard, you can see where the fire is. You only see one source of fire. And then you can go get away from the building, going in the opposite direction from the fire. That's the idea of that, rather than having to only go through in one direction past if the fire is coming out the windows on the first floor.
Okay, my question would be if you're in a situation where you can't go so you're into a court and you only have one way to get out. It may very well, and if the stair comes out in the middle of the building and let's say it's 20 feet to the front, you're suggesting that the side yard would have to be 20 feet.
Or you figure out another way to get people around the building. In Seattle's case, back, whenever that was, a long time ago when I was doing plan review, people would put walkways that went all the way around the building, essentially. So you could go in the other direction, get to the other side of the building, away from the fire.
Okay.
The question is, how much redundancy do you want to have once you get out of the building?
Yeah. Would there be opposition to just changing it to say you have to be able to if you go out on a side egress court, that you have to have 2 paths out of the egress court? I guess that's more restrictive than what we're doing. We actually are allowing people to have only one way.
Yeah,
Something
right.
that
In a,
makes
in a, in a case where it's very wide, you can get
Yeah.
away from the building.
Okay. All right. Is that a general consensus item? And that is both 34 and 35? Row 34 and 35?
Yes.
Okay. Hoistway protection required. Number 13.
That is requiring, that's number 13, that's requiring protection of the hoistway, which is already required. But this is a pointer to that. And it's the additional language of where approved by the building official, natural ventilation is permitted to be substituted for pressurization. And so this is really around the external hoistway. So if I've got an exterior stair, an exterior elevator, and that is configured in a way that's not, that smoke's not going to accumulate, then that allows a building official to waive the pressurization requirement. So the base requirement here is to require pressurization of the, pardon me, to require hoistway protection. Hoistway protection is per 3006.3. Dustin, do you mind bringing that up?
Yeah. So 3006.3.
Yep.
Okay. A little slow.
Maybe click on 3006.2, see if it takes you there.
Yeah, my computer, when I get going with these meetings for very long, it starts overheating and then running slow. So give me it's trying.
Maybe you need to sit right in front of an air conditioner, Dustin.
Go.
So 3006.2.1, sorry, Dustin, is where corridors are required to be fire resistance rated, which we just above said that corridors are required to be half-hour rated. Hoistway openings shall be protected in accordance with 3006.3. If you want to scroll up again. And so the base code requirement is that hoistway protection. So when you provide an elevator, hoistway opening protection is required by one of these methods. And it's a enclosed lobby, additional doors. So we think of that as a mini lobby or pressurization. So what this section does is it's kind of repeating a base code requirement. And if you want to go back to the provisions, thanks, Dustin. So it's saying that it's repeating what's already in the base code, which is that elevator hoistway openings shall be protected in accordance with 3006.3. You're still allowed to use any of the options for hoistway opening protection. And if you're on shaft pressurization, you must be connected to legally required standby power. This is the same language around standby power that should be amended to match what Rich mentioned on item 12 to be
Mhm.
consistent. And let's see what else I miss. And then it also gives the natural ventilation option. So I don't know that this is 100% needed, I'll be honest, but when we talked about it at WABO, this is something that was explicit in the Seattle code, and I think you can get there in the base code requirements, but in sort of looking at the overall package, we kept it just for clarity on what are the requirements.
With the standby power, you would get there in the base code as well.
Rich, do you know that offhand?
Yeah, I'm looking.
It should be at a 27.
So, I mean, it calls out hoistway pressurization. So does that automatically kick in for standby power? I think it does.
Yeah. 909.
Is that the question? If it's pressurized, I think it would be standby power.
909.21.5 requires standby power.
Oh,
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Mike?
Hey, just a quick question, Ardell. When we're talking standby power, is the intent for them to have a generator or a specific type of standby power?
I'm gonna let Rich answer that one. It's the same as the prior.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike, it could be 4 different options.
That's exactly what I was getting at then.
Yeah, we're trying to sort it out with the state amendment. But basically it is one of the options laid out in NFPA 70.
Yep, no, got it. And in fact, we just went through of a 4-story I2 condition 1. The standby power is a separate drop from the power grid. We have PUD coming in from 2 sides, and that's one of those
Right.
options.
Yeah, that's one
I
of the
didn't know if we were specifically looking at a standby generator for that means of egress or not. So you already hit the nail on the head with what I was looking for.
Okay.
Yeah, I would point out again that what we're doing with this language is prohibiting tap ahead of the main, which would technically be allowed in the electrical code.
Yep,
Right.
and that's what we just went through up here. So that's perfect if you're prohibiting that. Hey, thank you, John.
Ardell, I think when we're talking about the specifically referencing the rated corridor requirement. I mean, I think we were. My memory is pretty hazy, but I think we were talking about it in the WABO conference because we were just trying to reinforce that sometimes that gets missed, right? It's if you have
Yeah.
sprinklers, you can get out of it, but then there are exceptions to that, and then it's a specific item in the base code. So it's already in the base code, but I think we were just trying to reinforce that fact because it does get missed sometimes, or at least it did. I don't know about now.
So Rich, you're saying leave number 13 in to make sure that it doesn't get missed,
Which
rather than
Yep.
rely on the base code.
I think whatever talks
Yes.
about the rated corridors, yeah. I
Okay.
think so. I think so. I mean,
There's a way there, right, Rich? It's just
yeah.
circuitous.
And I think in previous code cycles there was more of a confusion about it because it wasn't as clear as it is now. If you stay in the base code, it's pretty clear compared to what it used to be, but I think it's not harmful to reinforce it here.
Okay.
That
And
makes it.
and I think you have to at least, if you want to contemplate getting rid of it, you have to keep at least the last sentence, because again, that's the part that prohibits the tap ahead of the main.
Okay. Sounds like there is consensus to leave it as it is. Communication to other occupancies. Did we revisit or visit this previously? The whole other occupancies question?
It doesn't look like it was one of our,
Fourth,
we may have discussed it, but I don't.
the fourth,
specific.
the fourth row. Occupancy R2 apartments. So it is, we are limiting this to R2 apartments. Or apartment houses, right? And that is in number 2. Oh, 101.1.
Roger, I think we were talking about the limiting the occupancies served by that single stairway to R2 occupancies. That first story could have some other occupancies, but it would be separate from the stairway that's serving the R2 above.
Okay.
Up to 5 stories.
And the occupant is up in 101.1, the general. It is R2 apartment houses are permitted to be served by a single exit.
And I understand we were also talking about going to 6 stories, but in terms of like other occupancies, I think we were still trying to maintain a separation.
Okay. So moving down then to the, which one are we on? 2. So this is the question, are there other occupancies?
Roger, I think the exiting question, whatever it is, oh, this is, okay, sorry. There's 2 separate questions. One is item 2 and the other one is the lower item about exiting through other occupancies. I think those are 2 separate items, just to be clear.
Okay.
2 separate issues.
Are they listed as 2 separate issues on our list? So this is communication to other occupancies. That's the one that we are on now, row 37.
Oh. Yeah.
John, would you describe to me the difference, communication to other occupancies and exiting through?
The difference is whether you can have the other occupancies separated from the stair and not really using that as an exit versus your only way out of the building once you come down the stair and you have to go through another occupancy in order to leave the building.
Okay.
So the current enforcement in Seattle has been, and historically has been, stringent about communications to other occupancies. And as Wabo discussed it, the language was changed to, and what's included here was other occupancies shall not directly communicate with the group R2 occupancy or with the single exit stair. There is an exception. The idea is that, I think I spoke about this last time, is to limit the amount of the exposure of the stair to other hazards. And so there's, it's a sort of it's not fully exhaustive, but it's a list of all the things that you might see typically programmed as part of an apartment building. And the question is, are these okay? Chapter 3 in the building code says to assign spaces and occupancy based on how they're used. So it's under 302.1 occupancy classification. And so these are some typical spaces in an R2. So do you want to just kind of go through them, Roger, or do you like one by one?
I would go through them.
And so, and there's an interpretation here around accessory occupancies and whether they are part of the floor. So if you are in chapter 5 of the building code, sorry, I'm trying to pull up accessory. If you're limited by the area, accessory occupancies can be considered, I'm struggling here because I'm trying to get to the exact code language, part of the residential occupancy. And further, accessory occupancies, there's no rated separation requirement between accessory occupancies. So the questionnaire is really more around, are these, for these spaces that are accessory to the R, is it okay for them to be on the floor? Is this additional hazard from these types of spaces okay to expose the single exit to? So spaces like an electrical room or a mechanical room or an IDX room on a residential floor or storage room, are those okay? A trash chute on the floor, trash excess room on the floor. Those are, I'm going to bundle those together and then kind of take each one now. It would be, these are not typically occupied spaces. And so is it okay for these to open directly to the corridor? So the first one's electrical room. And generally these are small. Is that okay?
We've seen it allowed with separation, rated separation for the door to protect the
It would
separation
have,
of the corridor.
yeah,
So
it
we
would
have to have that. So we've
you'd
seen
have
those.
rated door.
Yep.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
How do we, so if we just say that that's okay, how are we saying that electrical rooms? Are we gonna add that to number 2?
We're not adding it. We're just kind of talking through it so that the intent of the language is understood, Roger.
Okay, okay. How do you get there by code then? Is that by not excluding it, is it okay to have electrical rooms?
Yes.
Okay.
John?
Yeah, so question, are we saying that you could open this directly into the stair? If we say okay with rated door, that would mean that you can have these spaces open directly into the stair. I mean, open to the corridor is one thing, open to this directly into the stair is a different issue in my mind.
I think we're talking about opening to the corridor, John. Opening to the stair would be prohibited as a not normally occupied space.
Okay, just want to be clear about that.
Okay.
Mechanical room on the floor. Again, is that okay with a rated door? Opening to the corridor. IDX room is a similar type of room, or storage room on the floor.
Storage room is a little bit more of a concern.
I'm
So-
sorry, Dave, which is more of a concern you said?
Having a storage,
Okay.
because the dwelling units should have enough room for themselves. If it's gonna be similar to other apartment buildings, we don't put storage rooms on apartment buildings on the floors. They're in the garage or in the main level or something like that. So that's something that I think from potential for a fire situation, we wouldn't be happy with that. So having it as prohibited is agreed.
Yeah, I think we're placing an emphasis on this rated corridor and, adding to any sort of risk to that corridor, opening into it with the storage, one or more storage rooms. Yeah, I would be opposed to that.
And right now, even the way this is written, it's not, this has room for interpretation. It just says other occupancy shall not directly communicate. A storage room does, again, if it meets the accessory, could be classified as an R as part of the R2. So I think if we want to go to a prohibition, explicit prohibition, on specifically storage, that we may need to come back to that as far as the appropriate language and whether it's here or not. And then the next one is the trash chute on the floor and the trash access room. So if you think about many apartment buildings will have both the trash access room is the anteroom to the chute. That room has a rated door. It also has protection of the chute itself, has its own rated shaft and a door on that as well.
May not be a popular opinion, but trash chutes are fire traps. There are always problems with those no matter what we have. And I'd prefer that we just didn't have that at all. They'd have to have some other means of taking care of their trash, but the chutes is just a problem.
John?
Anecdotally, I've in other conversations, similar conversations, the trash access room tends to collect trash. People don't always get the trash into the chute. They just are, shall I say, not diligent, and they just leave their trash in the room there, so it gets stuffed with trash.
Well, I would suggest though, if we're talking about a 6-story building, what if I live on the 6th floor, what else am I going to do with my trash? Carry it down the stairs or take it down the elevator? Which, if I have juice dripping out of my garbage bag, do I want that in the elevator or do I want that in the trash access room? If I'm it kind of seems to me like if the trash chute and trash access rooms are not, I don't know why we would need to specially exclude them in this case, would be my thought. Are they always an issue? Well, maybe, but I don't know why I can see the storeroom maybe, but Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, just bringing up that here's a cost savings because it's going to cost money to put the shaft in. It's going to cost money to build the room. It's going to take square footage out of each of the floors. It's a convenience.
We're not requiring them to put trash chutes in, but we're not, if they want to, they are allowed.
And just as a counterpoint, there are sprinklers, correct, Dave? In both the access room and the chute.
There are. They're just different, very difficult to maintain.
Yeah.
But it becomes problems. So they have to have access, put access holes to be able to get into where the heads are, and they're typically not readily available for a space to be able to get that access door in. So I've seen some challenges with those in the past. So some of the buildings, what they have is they do have a garbage cleanup, similar to some of the apartment buildings. So they put out their cans at a certain time or something like that. But of course, that puts the garbage out in the hallway, which is an issue. But if they were to put it in their corridor before they get into the stairway, it's another consideration. So it's not an easy question either way. One way or the other is just, we're talking about an amenity that is a plus or minus to it. And if we're talking about trying to save money for construction, here's some square footage that we can put back towards the apartment building, so to apartments themselves.
And right now, just to be clear, there's no prohibition in the proposal right now. This is something that we did discuss in the WABO work group, and landed on allowing that to fall under local enforcement on how they wanted to treat trash. It is protected in the code.
Spencer?
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble following along here just because I lack some of the technical background, but is the corridor considered an R2 occupancy? Because as I'm reading, we're talking about number 2 here, right? And as I'm reading
Yeah.
that, I think what the code is saying there is that none of these rooms would be allowed to directly communicate with the R2 occupancy, which if the corridor is included, I'm reading all of this discussion as saying we need to change the language here, but am I misunderstanding something?
I consider the R2, the corridor serving the R2 occupancy as part of the R2 occupancy, yes. But I don't assign an occupant load to that corridor.
So would that require some kind of change to the language in number 2? If we
Yeah.
were to say, for example, that a trash enclosure room
Yeah.
would be, okay.
Same as the storage room, Spencer. You are tracking that properly. They would need, we currently do not have language prohibiting it in this proposal. We're just saying other occupancies shall not directly communicate. The counter argument from that jurisdictions will hear is that, well, I'm not in other occupancy. My trash room could be an S, it's a storage occupancy. But they can also say it's so small that it's part of the R2 occupancy because of the accessory designation that's allowed in the code. So that's the gap here, Spencer, is that the code permits accessory occupancies to be designated as the occupancy that they are or as part of the primary occupancy that they serve, which is the R2. So it would need, if we want to prohibit the trash access room and the trash chute from opening onto the corridor in a single exit building, you would need to add language.
Again, I don't see why we would prohibit it if we want to have consensus. I don't know, unless there's consensus for everybody else that we prohibit it, but and as the chairman, I don't know that I can vote unless there's a tie, but I would suggest we either, if there's concern about it, I think we would put that in yellow and let's revisit that if whether we allow the trash chute in the access room. I think the storeroom we need, I guess that should be yellow as well, or at least we need if there's consensus to not do the storeroom, then we need to add language. I guess I would almost ask that we take all 3 of those, the storeroom, the trash chute, and the trash access room, and revisit them. That's, unless there's a strong feeling like, no, we want to prohibit the trash access and trash chutes. Which again, we're allowing these to go to 6 stories. I don't, expecting people to carry their trash down or get it into the elevator. I think that people are going to want to do trash chutes. So owners will want to do trash chutes. So are we okay to move on? Anybody can raise their hand. Trash collection rooms. Per code, they are prohibited on the floor, right? If you're going to have a chute, you're going to have a collection room down at the first floor.
Yeah, the section is, so the chute discharge room is required to have a fire rating, no less than the shaft itself. So it'd be either a 1 or a 2 hour room. And then the language here that says other occupancies shall not directly communicate. So here you would again say that is the trash room allowed to open onto a corridor. Is the chute discharge room permitted to open onto the corridor? So if there was a fire vent in the discharge room, could that compromise the single exit? And by saying directly communicate, what a building official could require is a lobby or a vestibule or some sort of separation to the corridors serving the R2 or to the exit stair itself. So what we'll often see is trash room on the low ground floor. The stair continues down to the first floor and exits directly out and has a corridor that is not the part of the R2 corridor at the ground level. That is just serving the first floor amenity spaces and this trash room. And so what this would prohibit is communication directly to that stair. Does that make sense? It's basically looking for redundancy.
Yeah. I think it makes sense to me, but I also would ask the question as a building official, if there is confusion or it's open to interpretation or people are making arguments that are not clear, do we want to be more specific in this case? And do we as a tag want to say yes or no, trash chutes are included or not allowed or not allowed, and avoid that argument that people can make? Just another, with all of these, I think that that's something we would have the ability to do in this appendix if we felt like it was important to actually prohibit storage rooms or trash chutes, or we could basically supersede what the model code says by just putting it in here and saying you can't do it in this case. Spencer, go ahead.
Well, I kind of had, I guess, a question along that line, and that is, do we just need to add something about these being accessory to the R2 uses? That's what I'm hearing, is that the intent would be that these are essentially accessory to the R2 use, but the code doesn't really lay that out clearly. And then just a note on the spreadsheet tracker here. I'm not, at this point, I'm not hearing that there's consensus on prohibiting the trash chute, but just reading the spreadsheet, it kind of looks like that's what the consensus is. So I don't know if we want to, and the same with the storage room. So whether that's, maybe we need to discuss more, or at least it wasn't my understanding that there was consensus around that. So.
Sure. Thank you. John?
Oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Oh, never mind. It'll come back to me. Sorry, I was trying to think about what Spencer was saying. Yeah. Oh, let's see. I think the issue is, again, yeah, oh, I know. So Roger, in answer to your question, depends how much flexibility you want building officials to have on interpreting. It works, it cuts both ways, right? One, you get a little more clarity, and you get yeah, well, clarity, and you get uniform enforcement. But then if you write it too clearly, then you don't leave any room for flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of a, which way do you want to go?
I can see that, and I'm not sure I wanted to raise it as a question or a point for, we can think about that. Dustin, I would say additional discussion needed. I'm with Spencer. I would add that for the storage room and probably the trash collection room. And then I think we should move on. We know that we got to come back and revisit those. Okay. Elevator. I see Seattle code prohibited. It's prohibited.
So you'll see the little star.
Yeah.
So there's the language in the Seattle code is other occupancies shall not communicate. So again, historically, that has been a prohibition on any occupancies, including accessory occupancies other than an R2. Where, again, we're trying to minimize hazard from other occupancies to the single exit and to the R2s. We've not allowed any communication. So that prohibited asterisk is there's been some exceptions where we've provided redundancy, but it's for the most part been prohibited. That's why the other columns aren't figured out. So the proposal here is other occupancy shall not directly communicate. That is the WABO suggestion. It doesn't provide the clarity of intent. It allows the building official to interpret it how they see fit in their jurisdiction. So there's pluses and minuses, as John just said. But right now that's the language, and it would be up to a building official to interpret. If you wanted to, if you think about the elevator, it's a shaft that is when the door opens, and if there was other occupancies on that first floor, it is atmospherically connecting those occupancies to the R2 at the stories above via a shaft. There's protection of that shaft, but there is communication. So that's, again, what is the exposure that you want to have to the R2 itself and to the stair and the corridor system serving the R2?
So I was unclear that this line was about communication directly. There will be elevators, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so is hoistway protection sufficient to protect a hazard from another occupancy that is connected via the hoistway itself? And that could be enough. You know, hoistway protection can take multiple forms. It's pressurization, it's a lobby, it's the double doors. And so there is some additional, there's shaft protection there.
So you're suggesting that the way it is written, the elevator can only go down to the ground floor, can't have any connection with any other occupancy. Ground floor and exit out the building. That's the way it is written now.
I'm saying the way it's written now, a building official could say it's not directly communicating because I have shaft protection.
Okay. Okay.
But it could also be read as I want redundancy. I want it to be a lobby.
Yeah. I don't know if we have our architects on the call. They might want us to say yay or nay to not have that, but I'm fine leaving that up to the building official. I guess, Ardell, I'm not involved in these discussions, but I seem to remember projects where, you know, you adding a vestibule happens at the last minute and because the building official requires it, and it's a lot of shuffling of the design, so. But I'm okay leaving it as it is.
Okay.
What do
Do
we
you
have?
want to move on?
Yeah, we've got 15 minutes yet.
I mean, these are all going to be the same
Yeah,
discussion, right? How many, what does it mean to directly communicate to other occupancies? What are the types of occupancies or types of accessory spaces?
yeah.
Going back to Spencer's comment earlier, other occupancies shall not directly communicate with the group R2. If you wanted to expand it, you could add some clarifying language around other occupancies, including accessory occupancies. I don't know, the other code writers on here might say that's bad code writing, but that could expand it if you wanted to.
Okay, so the elevator, we're going to, I don't know, Dustin, you've got the okay with corridor rating above. I mean, I think that the elevator is per code. Is this a per code? And we say, okay. We're not excluding it and it's allowed, we're not putting any additional restrictions on elevator access. Is that right, Ardell?
Again, I think it's however a building official wants to interpret directly communicate.
Yeah, okay. So the parking garage, we are specifically saying that's okay, so people can go out of a parking garage into this exit and up the stairs.
Yep.
Okay. And that would also be with, there were doors, it's not like it's.
Right, it would still have a rated door between the parking and the stair itself.
Yeah. Okay. What is amenity space that's part of the R occupancy? And
So
is that
that's
proper language?
Yeah, so that's again, that's an accessory space, so it would be a small assembly area, could be a B occupancy, but also can be categorized as part of the R occupancy. So if you think of like a small lobby area as a building entry that has seating, that's not necessarily large enough to be designated an assembly occupancy, and could be small enough to be associated either as a B occupancy or small enough to still call it as part of the R occupancy. So that's what that is. And again, I've got R2 occupancies on the floors above. I might have R2, a few units on the ground floor. Most of our land use codes require some amenity area, and that can be satisfied with, a party room, whatever that amenity space is. And the question again is how much do you want to preserve the stairs exposure and the R2 occupancy exposure to other hazards? And the presumption here is that in any of these spaces, it's what's the hazard associated with it. I think what you heard was concern around hazards around trash, potentially around storage. And amenity spaces might or might not have a commercial cooktop or some sort of cooking.
Dave,
Just another point about the accessory spaces like that is if you look at it as it's a common area, then ADA may kick in.
well, I'm gonna, one of these things is, I guess, looking at all of these spaces, all of these issues, other than maybe the elevator and the parking garage, is the amenity space, whether it's part of the R occupancy or if it's an A occupancy. We're not prohibiting it in the building, we are prohibiting it from connecting to this exit stair, right? Is that accurate?
We're prohibiting it from connecting to the R2 or the exit stair, so both. So from the R2 occupancy, which would include the corridor system, and also from the stair.
So we're kind of setting this up so that on the ground floor, they can have these amenity spaces. You have, but the exception is on an occupied roof. That's R2, and you're saying that can get into the stair. But other than that, everything on the first floor is gonna have to be exited some other way.
The occupied roof is addressed in item 3 more explicitly.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you could take
Okay.
that off
Okay,
of item 51.
of row 51, okay. Jeremy, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, just as an observation, we've got I know it's podium construction, but I think it's applicable to this conversation. We've got a large podium building, and they've got trash compactors built per code. They're in shafts, all that. We have storage for the college kids' bicycles and e-scooters and things of that. But you access them only through the parking garage. You go into the parking garage, which is already an S1, already protected and separated from any R2 accordingly. And then in that S1 parking garage is the main room for the trash, where all those compactors and shafts and chutes come down into. That's where the storage access is from. It's from the parking garage. I have another one where those are only access to the outside, like off of the public way, but they don't open directly in these large 6-7 story buildings. They don't open directly into the stairway, into corridors, things of that nature. So it's something to talk about. I do want to have the opinion of we need to keep the protection of our only exit we have, and we don't need to introduce more hazards than need be. So just one point.
That's where I was heading to, Jeremy, is I think all of those on the ground floor. And as I started thinking about this, all of those would exit some other way, other than through this one main stair that we're exiting all of the floors above.
Yeah, there might be a safe way to integrate them into a building like this and not compromise the single exit. And we don't want to introduce any more hazards than the fire department, the building officials are comfortable with for things like dripping garbage. But it is a practical thing to think about. So is there a way we can quantify that in writing where we're accomplishing both? So yeah.
And actually where I kind of draw the line is the ones up above that what you may want to have on the floors above. I think that we want to allow, but once you're down on the first floor, that we want to preserve that, and everything on the first floor needs to be not communicate to this stair. So once you're down, you get out and you're not introducing hazards. That's a general. I mean, I'm looking at the next ones, the amenity spaces and the what was it, mailroom, I didn't see, building mechanical room, management office. I mean, I in my mind, I like, as Jeremy said, preserving the single exit, the only exit that we have, without introducing those. Spencer.
Yeah, I guess I have a practical question again, my lack of technical expertise here, but when we say it can't communicate directly, if I had, let's say, an amenity, a community room or something on the first floor, does it just have to be separated by a rated door from the stairwell with a secondary exit out I mean, if you basically have 2 exits on the first floor and then single stair serving the upper levels, would that meet the language that we're drafting here? Or do I literally have to walk outside from the stairwell to then get to whatever those community amenity rooms might be?
With the directly language, Spencer, it was envisioned that you could have another door. So if I had a pressurized stair and then I had a lobby on that stair before it entered into the corridor system on that first floor, then that A could still be on that floor. You could still pass through the lobby to get to the corridor system that goes to your amenity space. So you'd have an interior connection. There would just be, it would not be the A couldn't open directly into that stair. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I was envisioning. I just wanted to confirm. So thank you.
John?
I was just gonna add, yeah, directly opening into, or whatever we say there, means there's only one door between you, that space, and the other space. That there's other sections in the code that kind of use that language. So you have basically, if you say you can't directly communicate, you have to have 2 doors between whatever space you're in and the other space you're trying to get it separated from.
So you could have amenity space on the ground floor, you could have a mail room, the management office, and a building mechanical room. And you could use this exit for all of those spaces. You would just have to have a vestibule that people would have to go through first.
No,
No.
this single exit is for the Rs. You can have a convenience opening to have them connect. Those could not have also be relying on this as the single exit for those spaces.
Okay.
This is an R2 single exit.
Okay.
So the
Generally,
difference,
that first floor has another exit.
Yeah.
so the difference there is that there would need to be some kind of secondary exit for those other occupancies.
Yes, or you would need to expand the charging language.
Or your space is small enough to require 2 exits.
Yeah, Spencer, there's other provisions that would allow single exit for those spaces.
I like that clarification, Ardell. I like the way you clarified that. I don't know if it's that clear the way it's worded right now, but I support that and that clarification. However, we need to modify or tweak the language so everyone understands it that clear. I think that was pretty articulate.
I agree. Dustin, I'm going to suggest that you go all the way down to building mechanical room. And I think we have general agreement on what we want, but I'm not sure that the language, we're going to have to come back and revisit it. So we're going to need to clarify that language a little bit. But I feel like there's general agreement that the R2 single exit needs to be maintained all the way out. And if you're gonna have connections to that, it needs to be 2 doors. Or Del, you called it a convenience connection. So I think that sounds like what we want. One more down, the building mechanical room is probably the same. So what I am going to suggest is that I don't remember if we actually conditionally approved all of those above or not last time. Dustin, do you know?
Looking at, so everything that we did on the 29th, yeah, the 29th,
Yeah.
if it wasn't highlighted, it was conditionally approved and there's no strikeout or underline shown as a result of that. But everything that's highlighted is kind of a topic to go back and look at further. So I don't know if the only thing we've really made a substantive change to today is the striking of number 18.
Right.
And we could, as we move forward, it still sounded like we maybe wanted to talk about that a little bit more as well.
Yeah.
So my thought is to leave it there as struck out and highlight it for some additional talk later.
I'm gonna avoid the needing to go through and make a formal motion. We'll pick this up at our next meeting in 4 weeks when we'll be talking about the single exit. Speaking of that, I wanted to just let everybody know our next meeting for the single exit is 4 weeks from now. If I could pull up my calendar, that would be September 9th. And I just want everybody, we're kind of working backwards with some dates and all of the work that we need to do. We have kind of given ourselves January. There's a State Building Code Council meeting the end of January. I don't know the exact date. But that being our goal to have this finished. We do need to work in some public comment, or we're going to come up with a product and open it up for public comment. We don't quite have to follow all the rules that we did before, but saying all of that, I'm trying to work backwards to make sure we can get the work done. It is possible that in September and October, we might have to go to weekly meetings. So the single exit would be every 2 weeks and the multiplex would be every 2 weeks. Hopefully by the next meeting, I won't be here at the next meeting, but Dan will be here. I can have that schedule kind of laid out a little bit better. So, and I recognize, I think that there's a WABO meeting every other Tuesday. That's some complications, but I think we're going to have to continue to proceed and do the best we can to try to meet that deadline. So just be aware, we'll have the meeting in 2 weeks on the 26th, and then we will, which will be multiplex. Then we'll have a meeting on September 9th, which will be single exit. And by that time, we will kind of figure out whether we need to go double up the meeting. So, John?
Yeah, just for clarity, the WABO meetings are on Mondays.
Okay.
So there's no conflict there. But you get to the end of October and there's the ICC hearings the last 2 weeks of October, which will be a conflict for some of us.
Yes. Okay. Well, again, I'm aware that everybody here is volunteer and it's a lot of time. I'm also trying to keep that end date in mind and trying to make sure we can get there. So, Spencer?
I just wanted to go back to the spreadsheet. I think we were going to have a note on the storage areas to say that there was further discussion needed, and I think we missed that one. Just wanted to make sure so that when we come back to it, we don't lose our place.
Let me make sure. So we have new language added Or it needs
That's,
to be
let's
added.
see, row 42 there where it says consensus prohibited. I think we were just going to add a note to say more discussion was needed on that too.
I
Yeah.
thought that we reached a consensus that we didn't want them to protect the corridors, but we needed to specifically add language to specifically prohibit them. I'm happy to change the note, but that was my recollection.
I think I don't know that we have full consensus on that. I know I'm a little bit questioning again, that's whether that's on the floor above or whether that's down below. Let's make that yellow and highlight. I kind of agree with Spencer. We
Okay.
need to revisit that. So, okay. Ardell.
I just want to say I think I misled. I apologize on the yard discussion. If that's something we can revisit. Ken Brulette from Seattle flagged reminded me that that yard, those dimensions are only when you have natural ventilation, natural light and ventilation. So I don't think there is a minimum yard width for the single exit.
Okay, so do we
Or
need,
your EERO, I think is what we were discussing at the time.
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So apologize. Thanks, Ken.
Okay. And then I think that there are, I don't know, 6 or 8 or 10 items that we have not addressed yet. I'm going to anticipate that at our next meeting, which would be September 9th, that we will get through those. And then we will be ready to move up to the top again. So I would ask you before the September 9th, some of the items at the top that we've decided to come back, number of stories served by the single exit, construction type, dwelling units per floor. Let's all become prepared. Hopefully that on September 9th, we can start revisiting those. And when I say revisit them, I think the intent would be to have another discussion and then we would vote individually on those. So my plan is getting to the end and everything that's kind of, we have consensus on, we'll approve that. And then we will go back up to the top and start looking at the items and voting individually on the issues. So we'll see how we progress, but that would be my hope. Okay. Is there any other business? See, we're 5 minutes over. Hearing none, I will close the meeting. And thank you everybody for your time. Ardell, thank you for running the show for us. And we will see everybody in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, Dan, are you still on?
Yeah, I see him on there.
Hey, Dan.
There we go. Sorry, I was exiting and I had to cancel. Yes.
So I will just for the multiplex, I will number one, I hope to have this schedule kind of figured out a little bit better. Before that meeting, and then I also am in the process of expanding the spreadsheet that we have for the single exit. We have one for the multiplex, but getting the issues and expanding that. So hopefully you'll just be able to go through the similar, start at the top. Have we talked about it? So the process hopefully will be the same on the multiplex for you.
So the 26th is multiplex?
Yes.
Which is this? No, this is single exit. Sorry.
This is single exit.
After a while. Multiplex, single exit, which one is which? Yeah.
So it's multiplex and the residential code.
Yep.
But again, I'm hoping to expand the spreadsheet. It was pretty basic, the one that we posted last time.
Okay.
And we need to go through I don't know, Dustin, I will take a stab at trying to go through the proposal that we have and expand this a little bit. And then maybe if you can spend a little bit of time and we can get that in a similar shape so we can use that spreadsheet to go through the issues.
I can definitely help with that. One thing about the timeline I wanted to kind of talk with you about, I was doing some work on revising the 2024 adoption schedule, and I wanted to try to include the single exit work in there.
Okay.
And so thinking that, if we're going to try to say we're done with the work in January, my question for you is that final adoption in January, or we're setting out the CR 102 in January and starting the public comment period then? I don't
Okay.
see a need to necessarily be done with public comment period right then and there.
Okay.
But that's about 2 months of public comment that we would need to wait on, and then final adoption sometime in March or April, depending on the dates certain. And I think that if we wrapped up with final adoption in April, we would still have decent amount of time to incorporate for publication of the
Okay.
24 books.
You were copied on the email from Patrick. I included him on that discussion. And my intent is to go back through that and delve into it in a little bit more detail. So,
Okay.
and your explanation is true. Do we have to do the public comment before the January meeting?
I don't think so.
And that's kind of as much up to you. When do you, I think that, isn't it our goal to have everything published by July?
Yeah, and so in the most recent discussions, which was a while ago with ICC, they're saying that if we can turn them in a proof that's finalized,
Yeah.
they only need like 2 months from final draft to publications ready to sell.
Okay. And the final draft for this is going to be a standalone document appendix that you're just kind of plugging in, right?
Yes, sir.
Maybe one charging language or something, but so okay. All right. Well, I like that. And like I said, I'm going to go through and delve into this a little bit more. He had the CR 102 filing in November so that we would be done by January.
And
I think-
it might be possible, but I think that if we publish a schedule and we get ahead of it is better than publishing a schedule and having to revise it.
That is true. That is true. Okay. Well, Dan, I'll work on both of those between now and that next meeting. I'll be backpacking that weekend. So
Okay. So you'll have, if you can, the week before,